Okay, so this video is to do with designing and making the packaging. In this case it's for a DVD case or for a games case, and it's quite easy to do because we're just drawing cubes at the end of the day. Before we go any further with this, I'll try and link it back to the AQA site. So if I just drag that one onto the screen, there we go. And this is from the AQA 4550 syllabus, and it basically tells you everything that you need to cover and learn for your exams and for the presentations that you're going to do. You'll see down at the bottom it's got down here techniques and processes. The concept and the way of communicating to clients is very important. You'll also see as well the mock-ups and models and prototypes are also very important, and that's one of the things that we're going to lead to. Now the idea is once we finish designing the actual box, we're then going to make the box using simple nets. It also says with the sketching that we need to produce quality annotated 2D and 3D freehand drawings, and that's why it's easy to do the freehand drawings when you're drawing cubes, as it is a bit more tricky when you're trying to get a quality logo, which is why we've used CAD to do that. But certainly within the actual making part of it, the annotations and the freehand drawings are easy to do using cubes. And of course you can always use isometric grids and underlays. There's no problem with that at all when you're drawing things, and just doing a grid or a perspective grid underneath and drawing it in perspective if you need to. Okay, so what do we need to do next? Well, first of all, what we need to look at is when we're sketching is our research. Now we've already done a lot of research on the boxes, and that's on the other video clip previous to this, but this one is really just to do with sketching the designs of the boxes. But it does say here that what we need to look at is doing the textures and applying some sort of colour infusion and separation and all the other commercial applications to do with printing and various other things as well. So that's quite important that we do. It also says that we need to be able to draw a bit further down exploded drawings, which is what we're going to look at in a second, and use of scale drawings and things like that. So we're going to look at that a bit more in depth. Also with the surface development, how to actually do nets of boxes, and once you've done a nets of boxes, how we actually convert those into a 3D product or a model. Okay, so moving on. Next thing we need to look at is going to be what we're going to be manufacturing these things from. Now we know that the easiest thing to produce here is using paper and card, and that is ultimately what this actual box will be made from. Evaluation techniques we'll look at a bit later on, but the thing that we need to focus on down here is to do with the quality of design and quality of manufacture. And to get that, we need to actually look at these social, moral and cultural, economic and environmental considerations, and we also need to look at the sustainability of the product, which is why we're using card. If we go further down to actual marking scheme, this actually falls under development of design proposals. So to get into these top marks, what we've already done is done some excellent design work, as it's got written down here, or development work, using a wide variety of techniques using CAD. That is basically your designing of your logo to go onto the different mediums, and this design sketch, although it doesn't have to be as in depth, is quite important because it's going to add to these marks into criterion 2. So although it's all almost towards the end of the project, because we've already designed the logo and then we're designing the product that is going on, it still all comes under criterion 2. And so that's the idea behind this, to actually get more design works and developments in there. Okay, as it's got down here, we do need to still keep it concise. Make sure we get all the clear information in there that we need to use, and make sure that text is legible and easy to understand. You can't go wrong with this bit. Right, let's flick back to our drawing then. So I'll just minimise this one and take that back. Okay, so with all that in mind, these are some sketches that I've quickly drawn up. Now you can see what I've tried to do here is I've drawn this sort of bit that shows the top and the bottom of a box separating. Very easy to do using isometric paper, and I'll show you that in a second using 2D design. However, one of the things you can do is try to draw these in perspective as well, but because I've got quite a bit of perspective in my work already, what I'm trying to do is show that I've got different skills, and so certainly the isometric or the planimetric or various other things you want to use is ideal for this because it's square, and all we're doing is drawing squares. So where we're looking at these, that just shows how the box goes together, your exploded view. This is just a square that I've just drawn designs on to make it look more interesting. And that's another key point here. What we can't have, or what you shouldn't have if you're going for the high grades of manufacturing, is a net of a box that literally is just a six-sided cube. There's got to be something a bit more dynamic about it, some sort of mechanism, locking mechanism, some sort of surface decoration. There's got to be something there that makes that product look amazing, as if it would sell in the shop. Keeping it just square and simple isn't always the best way. So the other things that we could do then is, instead of thinking of a box opening from the top and the bottom, is thinking of a split box, which is what this development is. So you could think of a box that actually splits out, a bit like the Call of Duty and things that we'll look at in a second. And we've also got these bits here about vacuum forming, so we can vacuum form a little box for the actual DVDs to fit in and to place up. Now on these sketches, the idea and the focus has to be on the box. So you can see what I've got down here is logo written on it, or I can cut these bits out and put acetate behind. Bear in mind you can print onto acetate. All those things are quite good. These things will then slide in, so there's a box fitting inside a box. These things tend to score quite high because there's a mechanism in there, and you've also got a design, and when you are designing you must make sure you take into account the thickness of material. So whether you're using foam board or card, clearly when you actually assemble things, that needs to go in. Okay, so the next stage then, which I've looked at that one, is how am I going to design my box. So these are a few sketches that I've come up with. Well, the next bit that I need to look at really has to be the final designs for this. Now you shouldn't really have too many sheets of these, although it's easy to actually draw things that are square. What we need to do is try to get something a bit more orderly that we can then develop. So you can see on this one it's quite easy. What I've done here is I've development 1, development 2, development 3. So I've took the idea of the box being separated and just sliding up. So I've just took a normal box and just put a line through it or cut it in a direction. This one's obviously cut down. What I've tried to do down here, as I've put down there, is actually start to put corrugations in. Now corrugations you can do very simply by making the actual box slightly different, in the sense of the face, one of the six-sided faces has actually got these things built in, and we'll show you that a bit later on when we do the next of the boxes for the packaging. But for the moment what we need to do is come up with a final design that we're going to draw over on this side. So I've got the final things down here, and then from that point of view what I can do is say which one I'm going to choose. Well, I'm actually going to choose something that sort of goes between the two of these and it looks very similar to that. So what do I do next is I then look at 2D design. So let's fire up 2D design, and here we go. Now 2D design is very simple. What I'm going to do in mine is first of all go to the grid, double click onto the grid, change it to isometric. You can do it in oblique if you wish to do it in oblique. I find isometric is probably easy to do. I'm just going to knock that one down to 5mm, take that one down to 5mm, and then click on to OK. Okay, so what I do then is start off by drawing my simple cube. Now this doesn't have to be to scale, and I would argue that it probably wouldn't be while you're sketching. Now if you can't draw very well, the first thing you need to start by doing is by drawing that rectangle. Now again, if you get stuck with a rectangle and you're not sure what you're doing, this is easy to sort of track down and to look. So I've changed that one to the delete segment rather than the actual bits of the square line. And all I'm going to do then is simply draw the box going down. Now if you find that the box itself is too short, depending on what you're doing, square boxes are good because they're easy to be stacked, so they're easy to deliver, and they're also quite a good shape to start off with as a crate to develop your ideas. So starting off square isn't so much an issue that you would probably think. So if I zoom out, you can see what I've started to do is to get my box. Now if you find that you need a greater sheet, all we need to do then is just, all I'm doing on this one by the way is just projecting the lines going up, because I will need mine to be slightly bigger, and I'll do exactly the same. Now if I find that it doesn't fit on the page, a bit like what I'm trying to do now, then what you need to do is change the page sizes, and the way that you do that is very simple. All you would do is go to where it's got setup, where it's got drawing. You could change it on the layout, so I could click onto layout, and instead of saying that you want standard size as A3, just click onto A2, and away you go. And then when I zoom in, it goes back to being where it is, and I can start to design my ideas from there. Now I'm just going to keep this square for the time being, just because of the time, and what I will do is just show you quickly how we get that square to draw around. Now you could draw around that by sliding it under a piece of paper, or you could just turn the grid off, refresh, and you could either go to File, Export File as JPEG, or WMF file. JPEG's probably better. That's this one as well. If you want to let you do the JPEG, you can do it that way, or the easiest way by far is just to screen print, take it back into your designs, and then click on to paste it into the box, and away we go. So what I can do on there is just trim that one down and drop that on the side of the page. Okay then, that's that tutorial sorted of why we're doing it. The next tutorial is just going to focus on how I get this sort of sketch to go into your final design here.